There's some interruption in recording, so let's now start from where we left. So ASME section 5 covers the ND examination rules. Section 6 recommended rules for care and operation of heating boilers. Then recommended guidelines for care of power boilers, and section 8 rules for construction of pressure vessels. Now when we say rules for construction of pressure vessel, it does not only include construction activities. The word construction includes design, fabrication, inspection and testing, all requirements, and that is clarified in the code itself. So division 1 is the rules for construction of pressure vessels, division 2 is alternative rules, and division 3 is also alternative rules but for high pressure vessels. Section 9 welding and brazing qualifications, section 10 fiber reinforced plastic pressure vessels, section 11 rules for in-service inspection of nuclear power plant components, and section 12 rules for construction of and continued service of transport tanks. So historical development we already seen. It started and first code was published in 1914, and since then the codes have evolved till date. So division 1 is used most often since it covers sufficient requirements for majority of pressure vessels. The main objective of ASME code rules is to establish the minimum requirements that are necessary for safe construction and operation. The codes define the requirements for material design, fabrication, inspection and testing which are needed to achieve a safe design. Coming to division 1, the scope. The recommended pressure range is between 15 psi and 3000 psi gauge pressure. In relation to the geometry, the scope of this division defined as the first circumferential joint for welded construction, first threaded joint for screwed connection, first flange or bolted connection, and first sealing surface for proprietary connections. Now when we say first connection or say first circumferential joint or first threaded joint, what does it mean? It means that the first joint which differentiates or isolates a complete pressure chamber from other system. That means a descent to shell joint cannot be considered as first circumferential joint, or a closing seam of a vessel cannot be considered as first circumferential joint. However, a nozzle to pipe connection can be considered as first circumferential joint, or a flange bolted connection can be considered as first bolted joint. So in short, it should be isolating a pressure chamber from other system. That is the definition, and the scope limited by geometry. Code does not apply to non-pressure parts. However, welds which attach non-pressure part to pressure part shall meet the code rules. It also identifies specific items for which it is not applicable. This includes fired process tubular heaters, pressure containers which are integral part of mechanical devices, piping systems and their components. Structure of Division 1. So Division 1 is divided into three sections, subsection A, B and C. So subsection A consists of part UG, which is general requirements that apply to all pressure vessel parts regardless of the material and fabrication methods. Subsection B covers the requirements for various fabrication methods. So subsection B consists of UW welded construction, UF forged construction. Now you see the clauses are identified by a logical way. That means U is the ASME section division 1 designator. Then so UG is the general requirements. Then UW is the requirements for pressure vessels made by welded construction. UF is for force construction, and likewise. Subsection C covers the requirements for several classes of material like UCS for carbon and low alloy steel materials, UNF for non-ferrous materials. Now here is only a slightly different, because if you see UHA, it covers high alloy steel, UNF non-ferrous steel, UCL is clad and lined materials, but UCS covers not only carbon steel but also the alloy steel material parts. So this is very important. UCS covers both carbon steel as well as low alloy steel material components. Division 1 also consists of mandatory and non-mandatory appendices. The mandatory appendices are the ones that addresses the subjects not covered elsewhere in the code, and those requirements are mandatory. Non-mandatory appendices are informations and suggested good practices. Then section 8 division 2, which are alternative rules, as the scope is similar to section 8 division 1, but there is no limit on higher pressure. The allowable stress values for division 2 are higher than allowable stress for division 1, and the vessels constructed with division 2 are economical over division 1 when the saving in material cost is higher than the additional costs required to meet the stringent requirements of division 2. So this means on one side we have a thin vessel by division 2, on the other side the requirements pertaining to material, design, fabrication, inspection, all aspects are becoming more stringent. So those stringent requirements versus the cost of saving in material. If that can be offset, based on that we can take the decision which code would be more economical. Division 3, it applies to pressure vessels generally above 10,000 psi, and the design rules are mostly based on FE analysis, and the ND and material requirements are more stringent than Division 1 and 2. Various pipe standards which are referred in ASME Section 8 Division 1: 36.19 stainless steel, 36.10 welded and seamless rod piping, then flange and gasket standards. So these are the standards which are required for a complete design of vessel. So ASME has given cross references to these standards. We have already seen in presentation which was by ASME that they have a widespread overall in the world, and more than 113 countries accept ASME and boiler pressure vessel code as a means of meeting the government safety regulations. Quality system of more than 4500 countries in more than 4500 companies in more than 65 countries are currently accredited by ASME. So this is all about this session. Thank you very much. If you have any questions, please write to me on my email address, or else you can also put your comments in the below section. Thank you.